Welcome, fans, to episode number 4 of Ryders Rasslin Review, the flagship show, weekly show on the Cheap Heat Productions Network, the pro wrestling news that you need with the insight that you can't get anywhere else. We've got a lot to talk about today, but I should mention that I am Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. We, of course, have Mr. Cheap Heat himself, as I like to say, tireless public servant, man of the people, Morris Shortall, and, of course, Mr. Ryder, the namesake of the show. But before we start to get into it, Morris, I know you wanted to shout out one tough SOB countryman of yours.
Yes, before we get into that, I want to tell Ryder the story about last night's podcast, which if people haven't seen, we had an ex-WWE creative director on, and she gave us some really, really, really good stories, which people are going to see in the news, no doubt, over the next couple of days. But I was trying to figure out, like, we'd done the show, and we had, like, 200 live viewers overall, and I was like, that's a bit strange, because normally it wouldn't be that high. And then I realized that MILF Hunter was supposed to be on that show, and whatever way the algorithm worked, and MILF Hunter was taken out, I used the same link, but I just replaced the titles with this lady, and I think that's what happened. Somebody was searching for some dirty things last night, and they found our stream, and were probably extremely disappointed.
He almost drew, and then you got the no-show because of the
injury.
Diverticulitis got him.
Yeah. Well, if we can get Brock Lesnar, I can get him too.
It's the old bait and switch, though. That's not a good start for a promoter. They were tuning in to hear about the lovely Brandy Dean, and they got some good content nonetheless.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was like an AEW show where they put one person on the poster.
Card subject to change.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. Just JD McDonough, I only seen him a couple of weeks back. Him and Finn came to Ireland for an independent show over here. So thoughts with him. Fair play to him for continuing the match. 2 broken ribs and a punctured lung. So, yeah, amazing.
He punctured his lung on that spot, huh?
Mm-hmm.
He hit hard, man.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
He collapsed backstage. That's what they're saying.
He didn't break his neck?
No broken neck.
He's lucky. That was nasty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's a tough kid. Good for him. Glad that. And you know what? His credit. He finished the match. He's going to come back and watch the push he's going to get now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That could be a game changer for him. They need to separate Finn and him anyway. It's just because they're 2 Irish guys and they have both of beards. They don't need to be together. Separate them. Let them do their own thing.
Well, was that it for Sheamus the other night? Is he done? I heard he was.
No. He signed a 5-year contract a few weeks back. So he's going to go on that run to get that Intercontinental belt, and then it's complete Grand Slam. They might do it at WrestleMania, or they might let it go for a while. They all chase, like what John Cena will probably do for this historic title reign.
Right. You could be correct.
Maybe.
Well, hats off to him. I mean, having broken one rib before, I couldn't imagine finishing a match. So that's almost superhuman, and let's hope that does indeed translate into a upper position in the card. That's not always guaranteed, though, is it, Mr. Ryder?
No, not at all. Listen, you get hurt one time, you come bouncing back, but you get hurt multiple times, then you become Mr. Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And then they think you're injury prone, and then you're done.
And if you look at his tag team partner, Finn Balor, when he won the title that night, the world title from Seth Rollins, and remember he injured his shoulder that night, had to relinquish the title on Monday, hasn't been world champion since, so we'll see.
Well, and he got buried with the other gimmick we talked about. But that night, what move injured him? Do you remember?
Yeah, we think it was a power bomb into the turnbuckle, wasn't it?
Right. And what move injured Sting?
Same.
Buckle bomb.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So who would take that move? I wouldn't take that move. I'd laugh at him. What move paralyzed Draws?
The Tiger Bomb.
The running power bomb.
Yeah, from D'Lo Brown. Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Awesome injured more people with a running power bomb than anyone on planet Earth. You can't protect yourself.
Except Tanaka. He seemed to be beyond being hurt.
He had no neck.
Yeah, true.
His head was growing out of the middle of his chest.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up, because a lot of fans don't realize that the power bomb is, despite people, you think of Vader in WCW injuring, actually breaking that individual's back, and a lot of fans just saying, "Oh, it's a power bomb," because it's been, so used, but it's one deadly maneuver potentially.
Did Vader do that on the floor?
No, I think that was in the ring. He grabbed the enhancement guy, folded him right up, and he took a really bad angle on it, and he just drove. He's one of the guys that reportedly, and I just did a show on this on the weekend with Angel Medina, the Kingpin. Shout out to him about dangerous finishers. He had a reputation, don't know if it's correct or not, it's anecdotal, of treating, the enhancement guys differently than he did the stars.
Did he really?
A lot of guys have said that to us over the years here. Bad experiences.
I would have liked to work them and beat the fuck out of them.
Well, yeah.
That with me.
Perhaps this is a guy that I know you're familiar with, having been in the Fed, but one of the worst abusers of that principle, and you can go back and look.
I think I know what you're going to say.
You know what I'm going to say?
I think I do. Go ahead.
Would be Yokozuna.
Really? I wouldn't have thought that in a million years.
Yeah. If you look at his bonsai finisher with the with the enhancement guys, he'd be far away, barely holding on to the rope, throw his legs out, and yet with Brett and Hogan, he's double hand, boom, catching himself, landing on his feet.
I have wrestled every Samoan, and no matter what they do to you, you never feel it. Even if it looks brutal, I would be amazed if that was. You may be right, but I find it hard to believe. I'm going to get down on that. We're gonna put a pin in that one.
Yeah, there's quite a few wrestlers from the Northeast that will talk about that. A guy named Strangler Steve, who worked a lot of enhancement during that period of time, and 2CW in New York, really got hurt by him, and said that it was intentional.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Who were you going to say?
Perry Saturn. As I thought.
Oh, Mike Bell.
He went through a phase, didn't he? Of just been pissed off. I think.
What an asshole!
No excuse.
An asshole. 24 hours a day. He was an asshole in ECW to everybody, and he never. And I was in this, never to me, but treated everybody like shit in ECW. Got to WWE, wasn't as bad, but he didn't Gangrel well. He worked Gangrel, and they had the match called, and he immediately off the bell kicks Gangrel right in the face and shoots. And they had a fist fight right under the ring. Like that Gangrel, he did it too. He did it to JJ Johnson, who was my tag partner in ECWA for a long time. A lot of guys, he would just shoot on him. I don't know why. I don't know. He wasn't proving anything. But no one ever really shot like Gangrel shot back. But yeah,
and of course you've no doubt seen that horrendous footage with Mike Bell, where Saturn threw him out on his head,
just
intentionally. That's how is it that, I guess because he had a name, that he could get away with being unprofessional like that and still working, but then they gave him the legend has it they gave him the Moppy deal as a punishment.
Probably. I mean, I honestly don't know why he was there. I mean, he wasn't over. He wasn't well liked, and he would do things like that to try and hurt people. You're here to entertain. You're not here to injure people. And if you're known for hurting people, who wants to work with you? I never worked him. I never had to work him. And honestly, if I had to work him, he wouldn't have shot on me. I would have beat the fuck out of him.
Mm.
But he was an Army Ranger, I think. So I think somewhere along the line, all 5'6" of them thinks he's the toughest guy in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, didn't he get shot? Didn't he jump out of a car and somebody shot him?
He actually, according to the actual bona fide news report, was I believe it was in Jersey. He came across a woman being assaulted on the side of a road somewhere. I don't know whether it was the turnpike or wherever, but and he pulled over and he intervened and they shot him.
Okay, well, kudos to him for intervening. Sorry he got shot, but sometimes you learn a lesson. Maybe it made him a better man, but I'm glad he tried to save the woman. Good for him.
Yeah, he's had some rough years, but apparently, and he doesn't do many interviews. He did one with Feinstein last year, and he seemed to at least have his faculties together. But before we leave this kind of impromptu topic, I should ask you about the pressure that supposedly exists, and we did a lot. And Stevie Richards, kudos to him, did a full video on the Beverly Brothers finisher, the Shaker Heights spike, where it goes up like it's either going to be a flapjack or a free D, and Bloom grabs the guy by the hair and drives him, noggin first, and they use that in the AWA too. I personally was a huge fan of the tag team. I thought they had a major potential, but it was pointed out that it limited them because none of the names would take it. And he did say that sometimes there's this pressure that you're going to go in there and you're going to take this, and or else you're not going to work anymore. Have you ever handled or come across any of those situations?
I personally have not. If I, to my credit, was very well respected. And I always said, I will not dive on my head, and I'm not going to do anything to injure you, and you're not going to do anything to injure me. Coco Beware, we were in Africa, and he wanted to give me his, that would death out the driver's, the whatever the hell they call it, suplex driver.
Ghostbuster.
Yeah, absolutely not. he goes, come on. No. We're in Africa, and I'm definitely not getting hurt here. And if we were in America, I wouldn't be getting hurt there either. So no, I'm not, anything where you're coming down on your head, I won't take. And if I'm going to do anything like that, Billy Gunn, watch me take the Famouser. And I'm the first person to ever kick out of the Famouser, in case you didn't know that.
No, I did not.
I am the first person to kick out of the Famouser. Billy Gunn let me kick out of the Famouser. And I won't even take that face down. So anytime you're going that way, I go sideways to protect your neck.
Mm-hmm. Like that famous injury with Marty Jannetty and I think his name was Chuck Austin, that seemingly a move very much like the famous or the rocker dropper, but my God, was this guy even trained? Does that blow your mind that back in the day they used to bring guys in and they were like, yeah, I was trained, blah, 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 and then they get in and they have no clue what they're doing?
Playing wrestler, I am very surprised they didn't figure that out earlier in the day. I have taken that move from Marty, and I duffed it on purpose. So I went sideways on an indie show. Because I'm not going down like that. No way. It's too dangerous. It's not worth it. But I love working Marty. Marty was actually great to work.
Is it hard to, like, that's what Austin said, it was going to go this way, that way, and certainly not to throw shade on him, the poor guy, but is it hard to, like, in those type of moves, you have to pancake, like, of course, the DDT, et cetera. Was that hard in that particular move or the Famouser to do that, or can you see how you could end up on your head?
I see how you can hurt yourself. See, with the way he took that move, if you watch that, and they made us watch that, by the way, backstage as an example of what not to do. So he wanted to make a really good impression, that guy, and he said this. He jumped as high as he could. And even when Triple H started with the pedigree, people were jumping. And he was like, no, just kick your legs straight out and go straight down. You're landing on your chest. But guys would try and take it like a pile driver. The only problem is with the rocker dropper, he's got your arm and he's got his leg over your head. So when he goes up with you, he kind of controls which way you're going. So, not me, man. If I'm not in control, I'm going sideways on you.
Marty Garner, he was the guy who took that infamous pedigree. I've had him on the show before. I don't know if you interviewed him with me, Jack.
No, I don't believe so.
Right?
Yeah, he's got a crazy story. He went and he worked with The Rock when The Rock was becoming famous, and he worked like Welcome to the Jungle with Sean William Scott. He was The Rock's PA for a long time. We should get him back on the show again, and because he's got an interesting story. He was out for WrestleMania 17, Rock and Austin's last match. And The Rock took him out for dinner for the weekend and paid for everything. And he's got really good, nice stories about The Rock.
Yeah, well, I guess the point to that story is that, and the discussion around finishers is a lot of fans think that, or don't have an appreciation for how dangerous it is. And you can speak to that, very, very clearly, how dangerous it is just to get into the ring and do, basic moves. There's always that potential for things to go very, very wrong. And you don't need someone like a Perry Saturn exacerbating it.
No, definitely not. We're in there. You're in there to do as Jesse Ventura said, it's a ballet with violence, not real violence. It's entertainment. He just got rid of the ballet. Just wanted violence. That's not right. So you know how dangerous it is and how easy it is to get hurt. I blew my ACL out giving a guy a snapmare.
Wow.
That's the only time I've ever gotten hurt in the ring and couldn't continue.
Wow.
On a snapmare, tore my ACL. So you never know when it's going to go. Ken Anderson was standing on the apron in a tag match and they hit the ropes and it tore his lat.
Yeah.
It's dangerous in there. And the beating you take, they pile up on you, man. You can only get rear-ended so many times before something breaks. Edge, his neck went on something stupid, right? He was on the floor and it just went out on him. Yeah. You never know.
Cope.
That concept of a bump card is a real phenomenon. You've only got so many in you, right?
Well, they tell you that when you start, and I can tell you, I remember taking one of my last ones, and it was we were in Penn State, and I wrestled Davey Boy Smith's son. I took a back bump, and I was like, oh, that didn't feel the same. I just didn't feel right. And I got to do anything else. It's time to start winding this down if they're not going to pay me a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, shout out to Harry, who's been on Great North Wrestling and the current IWGP heavyweight champion. Great talent. The story that wanted to start off with is the follow-up to the PCO situation. He was radio silent for a while and then did an interview with one of my least favorite quote-unquote wrestling journalists, Sean Ross Sapp. And he said that basically he was in the midst of negotiating a new contract. He had a deal in principle for a reduced per appearance fee, but more appearances. And he wanted to be on TV all the time. Claims this was verbally agreed upon. Then he got a concussion. Speaking of injuries, in 2024, he was hesitant to go get it taken care of because of TNA's reputation in the past, anyway, of not paying for those sort of things. So, and he also said that he had medical expenses that weren't reimbursed from a staph infection. Long story short, they pulled the offer off the table. They were going to speak further, and then there was radio silence, and he was a little bit resentful given his efforts to boost TNA's Montreal show, the attendance. But this is the kind of interesting part where he says, as for why he destroyed the digital championship, he thought it would make for an impactful and memorable moment. And despite the fallout, he spoke positively about the entirety of his tenure at TNA and appreciation for the overall experience. One of those things just isn't like the other.
I'm just not buying it still. I'm still not buying it. The guy's going on a tour of Europe. Maybe he's just writing himself off for a few weeks. I'll see him in Dublin here Saturday night. He's in our Royal Rumble. Maybe he's just going to do a few shows over here. I'm still not buying the whole thing. I don't know.
You think it's a work?
Yeah.
So New Jack ran around and said all kinds of terrible things about Jim Cornette for a long time. And then when he finally bumped into Jim Cornette, all of a sudden he's, no, Jim, you don't understand. That was an angle I was putting together for us. I kind of feel like maybe this is the same thing. And Cornette was, you might have wanted to tell me if it was an angle. You said some nasty things. I don't know if it was a work or it wasn't. Like I said, if it was a work, it was bad business. If it was him going into business for himself, It was a bad idea.
He seems like a smart guy, though. He's been around for a long time. There's never really been something like this from him before, has there? So I'm just wondering how old school he is playing all this thing. I'm still not convinced. Anyway, that's the card I'm putting down at the table.
Where's the motivation to smash the belt with his? First of all, what belt was this?
The TNA Digital Media Championship.
What the heck is that? Video game championship?
I guess that's like the internet champion,
Social
like
media.
Cardona had for a while there.
There's a belt for this?
Yeah, maybe that's why he smashed it. Maybe he was right.
Yeah, maybe I would have smashed it if I didn't.
Yeah.
But here's the aside from the speculation as to whether or not, first of all, I think it's a bad move. I agree with you, Mr. Ryder. But aside from the speculation about his motivation, what about that issue of some companies that obviously can't afford it not covering medical bills?
That's been going on since Jesse Ventura was trying to unionize everybody. You're a subcontractor. And I always told these guys, I've always said it, you better have a backup plan, so people know. And you'll hear Kevin Kelly when he's doing my matches at WWE. I worked for Miller Beer when I first got there. I was a Teamster. So he'll make fun of me in the matches, telling me maybe I'm considering another career in truck driving or something. I always had my own insurance. Like, I knew you're going to get hurt. Did you really think they're not going to take care of you, man? But everybody's Mickey Rourke out of The Wrestler. They think they're going to be a star forever and have enough money to cover it. You can step off a curb and end your career. Oh, just always protect yourself.
But what about the the argument there that the independent contractor thing has been abused for years because they're really not independent. Speaking, let's say WWF, WWE, you're not free to work wherever the heck you want, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and it would, follow that as a consequence, you're an employee and they should be paying medical bills. Remember the situation with AEW when it first started? Everyone was going to have medical insurance there, and I don't think that's materialized yet either.
As I said before, revenue matters. You have to keep your costs low. The billionaire daddy owner of the Jaguars is not going to pay for all of this for your friends to dive over the top rope. Yeah, they're not getting insurance. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the money these guys are getting paid, most of them, they can afford their own insurance. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the counter argument that your compensation is such that that's a cost of doing business.
Yeah, you buy your insurance. I think, is my head bent or my glasses are crooked today? Something's going on here. There we go.
Never noticed.
What's happening to me?
I was wondering, Jack, are we going to touch on Buff Bagwell's situation briefly?
Sure, that was a
Mr. Ryder. Did you hear about this?
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Anytime I hear Buff Bagwell, again, he's another one. If he had half the heat with the audience as he had with the locker room, he would have been a huge star.
He posted on Facebook today a YouTube link to his new YouTube channel that he was going to jail today.
What was he going to jail for?
Well, he wanted to let people know in advance.
Listen to this. This is interesting, and I do have, without going into great detail, I do have extensive knowledge of the penitentiary system and community parole and supervision and all those things. But he indicated that he's going to have the same shirt on, and he wanted the people to know that even though it's going to show that he was going back to jail for 72 hours, it wasn't in relation to violating the driving or the speeding or anything like that. It was something to do with, and this is where he kind of lost me here. He was talking.
The two flight deal, wasn't it?
That was before. That was a violation. He called it a violation of the program. And what he said, I guess that's his supervision. He's probably on some form of probation or whatnot. And he said that this time it was because he violated the rules of confidentiality around the program. And that was the whole ball of wax, which did not really make any sense whatsoever with me.
He also said that he took 3 flights because he was going. I'm guessing he lives in Atlanta, is it? So he had to tell them he was flying from Atlanta to, let's just say he was flying to Las Vegas. I can't remember exactly where, but in between Las Vegas, he flew to Dallas, and he didn't put that flight from Vegas to Dallas down. And then they were wondering how he got from Dallas back home. So he said that he had to fill out where he was going, but he didn't fill in the second flight, and this is also part of the problem. That's what he said, Jack, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, but that was a previous violation, but this one is not maintaining the confidentiality of the program, which the only thing that I thought of was maybe he has group programming, group meetings, and the old AA thing where what happens in the meeting stays in the meeting. But I for the life of me, maybe it's the difference between the Canadian and the Georgia correctional system. I don't see how that would result in 3 days timeout.
I would assume he violated his probation for pissing hot or something. I don't know what he's on probation for, and I don't want to speculate. But he gets 72 hours in jail. I don't know. That's kind of stupid. That sounds like you were driving on a suspended license for the 15th time or something.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get that for violating anything down here in the United States. As far as confidentiality, the First Amendment would take care of that. You can say whatever the hell you damn well want.
Well, he's in jail now for the last 1 hour and 36 minutes, according to his.
The world will never be the same.
Sorry,
we'll never recover. Bagwell's in jail. What are we going to do? It's just terrible. Jim Ross is probably devastated right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Wasn't that an interesting situation? Did you ever have any interactions with Buff on the Independents or also?
I have never met Buff Bagwell in my life. I cannot say a bad word about Bagwell. I only know the stories. Sometimes people believe they are their gimmick. Man, they brought his mother into WCW and gave her a tag team title. What? Why would they not think people be pissed off at this guy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wasn't she champion with Scott Steiner? Something ridiculous.
Don't think she did she?
She was a tag team champion.
Oh, yeah. They won a tag title of Bagwell's mother. Who was the booking committee that hated Bagwell so much they'd rather give it to his mother?
I think that was Vince Russo.
Yeah.
I got to think. I've always liked Vince Russo. I know him and Cornette hate each other. Always good to me, man.
Yeah, Vince gets a lot of stick, and I don't really know why. He's wrote some brilliant television over the years, my opinion.
I can tell you why. When he left WWE, he did it abruptly. I was there in Philly when that happened. Him and the other guy left. And these backstage were panicking, running around like the end of the world. We don't know what we're going to do. And I'm looking at guys. I'm like, Vince didn't leave. He's right there. But Vince is right there. What are you talking? You read about Russo? Vince McMahon's right here.
We'll be fine.
Steve Austin's standing over here. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Since Steve Austin appeared, you're going to do better fucking writing than Russo. Good Lord.
Yeah, and the Judy Bagwell on a forklift deal and Viagra on a pole.
They had a midget on a pole match, didn't they?
Maybe that was TNA, but he had Viagra on a pole, and I think that was Billy Kidman and Shane Douglas in order to the winner gets to properly service Tori Wilson.
First, if anyone that needed Viagra back in the day to service Tori Wilson, wasn't in the chicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Billy Kidman was dating Tori Wilson, and I can't tell you how many of his personal friends were trying to steal her away.
Oh, I can imagine.
Boy, is she something.
Yeah, she still had a successful post WWE career as well into fitness, and from what I understand, a very nice person at conventions and whatnot. But since we're on the kind of prurient side of the news this week, I'll skip right to a couple. that popped up, and this one, when I saw it, I thought I have to get Mr. Ryders' impression on this. Former WWE star Donovan Dijak has announced that he's opening the Dijak Wrestling Academy, and there will be 8-week courses with 1-to-1 sessions. The rub is it's all online.
Who is this guy? I don't remember this guy.
He had a good indie buzz in, I don't know, I think he might have worked PWG and Evolve and those super indies. Then he signed with WWE, and I think he was the one that was let go because of Ronda Rousey. And apparently
he did nothing wrong here. He said he pulled on her loop or something ridiculous, right?
Yeah, he got the shaft there. But speaking of shaft, how in the world are you going to train people online entirely?
Dude, people will pay for anything, man.
You could do maybe promo classes online.
Imagine you show up at, I don't know, who would be the best show? Show up at a show Jim Cornette's at and walk out and say, "Hey, Mr. Cornette, I was trained online by Dejanovac. I'd like to work the main event tonight." Well, hell, come on in. He trained online. You would get the shit kicked out of you. We had a show in Jersey one time. I think it was a Dennis Carluzzo show. And there were some new kids there, and I got a couple in the ring with me, and I was working with them, and I could tell they were terrible. And I kept asking, "Where'd you train at? Where'd you train at?" And they kept saying Monster Factory and all these things. You didn't train the Monster Factory. Well, it turns out they were backyard trained, but they sold a bunch of tickets for the show, so they let them wrestle on the show. And I'm watching their match, and it was just Stone Cold Stunner, the fucking Death Valley Driver. It was just finisher after finisher, and they're both 100 pounds kicking out of everything. So they were bad, and they actually had a little experience. I can't imagine what these guys who train online are going to look like. How's he going to teach them to lock up?
Go with your left, then. Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting. Yeah.
We're gonna practice punches now.
Poke in the eye there as well.
We're gonna be going through computer screens like it's going out of style.
Yeah, interesting idea. Probably get some money out of it, and then that will die a slow, painful
That should be dead at arrival. If anybody buys that, right?
They will.
They will. The worst part is some poor kid will think he's gonna teach them how to wrestle.
These people will pay $1,000 to get a picture and have a shot with the Undertaker on stage, and he's not even drinking. You drink the shot with the Undertaker on stage.
That's the Undertaker, though.
Oh, man, that's just. We won't get into the money side of things tonight.
Well, with the exception of our last kind of period story, the interwebs have been burning up the past week over the whole big time wrestling schmozzle and this promoter by the name of Dylan Hines, who I guess is the son of Bobby Fulton. Bobby Fulton's involved. RVD is involved. They've been going back and forth about shortages of money, and he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. And one of the individuals that was involved in that was Matt Riddle, who allegedly agreed on an $8,000 appearance fee and then held the guy up for 10 before I go out there, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's also come forward, his name has, because he was heavily promoted for Memphis wrestling TV tapings that took place yesterday. And he never showed, and they got the Cowboy James Storm to come and be the suitable replacement. But it just goes to show that there's oiliness on both sides.
So this was Riddle never showed? Did he get the money and never showed?
He was playing golf with Donald Trump. Is that what you said, Jack? Or...
Well, it said that he said that, or the speculation is he was acquainted with Nick Hogan, who got married on the weekend, and he wanted to spend time with Hogan, who was golfing with Trump.
Was he spending time with Trump? Or Nick Hogan.
I think he said that he wanted to spend time with Hogan, who was golfing with Trump. But regardless, when you're heavily promoted, I'm sure he got I'm sure he got a deposit of 50%. So
he probably got the whole thing. Actually, he probably got the whole thing. Well, then he should give the money back. Do the right thing. He should do the right thing. Like if you can't make it, give the money back. Listen, all these people think these promoters make a ton of money. Generally, they break even. They had a successful day.
We had his wife on the show some time ago, and she was going through the. At the time, it was topical. She was getting. He was involved in some kind of toxic relationship. Ended up with this girl who's involved in the adult movie industry, and she was getting a lot of stick online. But she gave a good interview. She seems okay. I don't know, but it's a dodgy, as we say here in Ireland, it's a dodgy territory to be in, the old porn industry.
If he took the money and didn't show, he should give the money back.
Yeah.
Period. The guy should sue him. He did.
Yeah, that's.
But RVD though, Jack, he seems like a guy that would be genuine. You know, he's got a fairly good rep, except for the time in here where he missed his flight to come to Dublin. And then he waited for the next flight, and then that flight was cancelled, and he didn't make the show.
That was an anomaly in his career, though. But that Dylan Hines situation is apparently between him and RVD over the promoter shorting him, and 3 times. But apparently RVD, when he was in Philly with an entourage, went out and enjoyed a great meal and some drinks, and to the tune of about 880 USD, and left and said that the promoter would pick it up.
Yeah, because of the time.
And that wasn't the deal.
So the promoter didn't pick it up.
Well, he did, but then in terms he deducted that from the top because that wasn't the. But I've found that in the shows that I promoted, some of the guys that come in, the superstars, you have the agreement. You've got, here's your fee, here's what's covered, here's what's not, and then there's all these extras that they seem to think goes
just perks. I got my money, and I'm going to eat your food, and I'm going to drive your car, and I'm going to no. Again, so WWE would pay us, and they would reimburse you for rooms back in the day within reason, right? So you go get a cheap room, and maybe back in the day you get a room for $35, $50, right? And they'd reimburse you for that. But there were guys that would go stay across the street at the Hilton for $350, and then come over, and they'd walk up to Arnie Skolnick with a cigar and give him the receipt. He would just look at it, look at them. You better go talk to Bruce. You'd never see him again. Any of those guys. Gone.
Yeah.
That was your one night as a superstar. Terrible. They take advantage. It's not right. That's not how you, and you know what? That doesn't benefit you doing that, because karma's a bitch. And I tell my employees this, karma's a bitch, man. Don't take advantage. Pay for yourself. Don't owe anybody anything. Just go do your job, man. And then you come back and be cool. Everybody has a right to eat, but you don't have a right to eat off my plate.
Yeah, and in the case of the shows that I've done, it's resulted in a couple of people not getting booked again, and
that's what will happen, right?
And that's what happens. I said I paid you right away up front. Blah blah blah. Nobody can say that I never paid anybody. By the end of the night, everybody was paid, regardless, and the little extras there wasn't appreciated. And you're right. You're independent promoter. The goal is to, unless you're, Tony Khan, the goal is to break even, and all those little extras that aren't part of the deal, that totally erodes that. So there's fault on both sides.
The guys who seem to do it are the guys that you book for a show and they won't promote the show and they just want to show up and be a big shot. It's the guys who actually help and promote the shows, I think, with people are actually more approachable, you know?
It's a shame how toxic, and I don't think Rob Van Dam is. I've always liked Rob Van Dam very much.
Yeah.
In fact, I big timed Rob Van Dam. I'll get into that today. And it was my son's fault, not mine. But I did big time him. So, but guys whose their ego is so big, they can do whatever they want. I was in WWE for 10 years, so I can treat everybody like dirt for the rest of my life. Well, guess what? We've all seen The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, and that's how they wind up. They wind up alone. They're 60 years old. They're smashing titles in the ring, trying to stay relevant because they want to be back on TV for one more run.
Or they're in
That's
jail.
the one they can retire on. It's toxic, bro. It's a sickness, just like Roddy Piper said. That's a shame. If Rob Van Dam did that, I'm very disappointed in him.
We're 2 hours and 10 minutes into Buff Bagwell's 72-hour stay in prison, just to keep everyone up to date with that as well.
He was a male gigolo. I wonder how much money he's made there so far.
Hopefully he's got a lot of canteen. The next kind of big deal is the fact that we're in Royal Rumble season. Two-part discussion here. First, your thoughts on CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, or as some people say, the most underwhelming world champion of all time.
Yes.
They had a confrontation, and it seemed to be building to something. Get your thoughts on that. But shout out to Mike Johnson and PW Insider Elite. He reported that one of the names that's rumored to be a surprise to come back and is cleared for the Rumble, who's still definitely a veteran, still definitely has it. And I know you know him, Mr. Ryder, and that would be AJ Styles.
He's back
So
from the foot.
Back from that foot injury. But what do you think about the? I guess you didn't catch it. I caught the clip of their little promo in ring, and just the basic every man for himself in the Rumble, blah blah blah. But do you see that as a WrestleMania main event, perhaps?
Well, Cody and Punk or AJ?
Cody and Punk, and then AJ coming back in the Rumble for that. I think he said before, that one last great run that he still has into him.
I think AJ's got a lot more than one last run in him. He's in great shape. I'm going to give AJ credit, and he did cry in TNA, but I still do like AJ very much. AJ doesn't do things that dive on his head and get killed. He's very Shawn Michaels-esque. I'm going to give him credit. He's very, very good at this. Probably one of the top 5 never do it. He's got a bad leg, man. That's the same foot he injured before, right? Came back and injured it again. Sometimes your just body wears out. I hope he has duct tape. I wish him well. He'll do well in the Rumble. He'll get a huge reaction. And I don't think it's another world title in it for him, but him and Gunther might be a hell of a match.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll probably use him. They're probably going to use him with this cross-promotion deal because it'll be great to see him back in TNA as well. So I think
there's that too, right?
That's going to factor into things, I think, with him.
You're not wrong. And that would give him a little break too. As far as Cody Punk, great promo. Punk's always good on the mic. I've always liked Punk's work. At the end of the Royal Rumble last year was Punk and Cody, right? Last 2. So maybe they build off of that. I don't know. Is that a WrestleMania main event? Cody versus Punk? I mean, I wouldn't get excited about that.
Only if Punk wins, it'd be great just to finally get the title off the plain man.
I can guarantee Punk would win. It's probably in his contract. I don't know, man. I don't know who Cody could go to WrestleMania with. People are going to be invested in. Roman Reigns, that was his story. That wasn't Cody's story.
Mm-hmm.
Cody benefited more from that than anybody. Cody's carried himself well. He doesn't get in trouble. He doesn't act like an idiot. He doesn't embarrass the company. Man, he's a dud, huh? It's a shame.
He'd be a great Intercontinental Champion for a couple of months.
How many times can a grown man go out in the ring and cry about his father? Just stop crying all the time. Now, if he turns into a heel and starts crying, it's one thing. But, man, you're a baby face.
I have the opinion, and I still agree with it, that Dustin Goldust, way more over, better wrestler, better character, better career. I'm a Goldust guy.
Dustin, he is very good. I don't think he ever got the props for the comedic genius that he was. Him and Booker T were unbelievable together.
If they had to put this much effort into Goldust back in the day as they have with Cody now, who knows?
Well, Vince had a vision for it. I mean, Vince always had his favorites. Dustin wasn't a bodybuilder, and I don't think Dustin was viewed as reliable because he had a bit of a personal issues. So there was concerns.
Yes.
Cody was, from what the pundits say, he was a business decision because he presents very well corporately. The prototype corporate champion, reliable, serviceable. Doesn't look like the Ultimate Warrior, especially with the merger and the new product. Looks like I don't want to say your average man, but as close to it as a world champion can get, I guess, next to Rasslin. But I think as we're seeing with the Netflix issues, and depending on who you talk to there, the views aren't what they expect. I think it's time to take the belt off Cody and progress down the mid card. Do you agree?
Well, who else would you give it to right now before Mania, though, that you could build with? Right, if you do it now, it's got to go to Punk.
Well, sorry, I meant at Mania.
At Mania, he could drop it to Punk, but I can't see that being a 5-star match or even a draw. I mean, Punk will do a good promo. I can't see a big build for that. Where that's the last match, face versus face. You can't turn Cody fast enough. I don't think so, man. I don't think Punk wins the Rumble. I think Punk wins the Elimination Chamber.
I think Cody would, if he went into that match with Punk at WrestleMania, he would actually just end up naturally becoming a heel there in that environment. I think CM Punk's WrestleMania moment, like a Rock and Austin kind of thing, but much lower down the.
Possibly, but but still, with Rock and Austin, it was star power at the end.
Yeah,
Punk will just destroy Cody's whole fucking thing. The aura will be gone. He'll just be done. He won't even be a heel. He'll just be the guy that Punk beat at WrestleMania. And then what do you do with him? He takes time off. He comes back. He'll turn into Finn Balor before he knows it.
I have to finish the story again.
Yeah. Let me do my story.
Yeah, I think the juice is out of that grape. The next story I'm just going to mention because we talked about it last week, and that's the fact that Jordan Grace signed with WWE. You weren't here last week, Morris. You were off. Are you familiar with her work? Do you get this performer? Or
she showed up in last year as a TNA competitor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's in probably better shape than most of the male roster, to be fair.
Oh, she's jacked to the moon now, right?
Scary.
Little tank.
Yeah.
Well, that's the aspect that I'm going to watch as to whether or not the massive amounts of gear that she's on slowly dissipates, because if they want to have any semblance of a wellness policy, I mean, she's probably one of the most muscular wrestlers out there now, period.
I don't like to say anybody's on anything because I don't know, but I kind of know. Sometimes food's pretty powerful stuff if you train right. But she's got some guns on her, man. Her arms might be bigger than Doug Basham's.
You mean training pairs and vitamins, right?
She's taking her baking soda and her Celtic salt.
Creatine.
Yeah, that's the creatine. Creatine works really well when you mix it with Tren.
Yes. Exactly.
I have no idea what you're talking about. She's on chicken and broccoli. That's as far as
what it is. But listen, whether she is or listen, when I was there was a doctor in the locker room. So everybody was on the gas, including the owner, right? Like everybody was on the gas. China was on the gas. Like, I don't care who takes that. I don't think it's as big a deal as everybody else says. It's not what it used to be when Mark McGuire was hitting home runs.
I think it's because wrestling isn't a competitive sport. Like, it shouldn't really be an issue, should it?
No, I don't think it should be an issue. I like my athletes on steroids. I don't want to watch some guy get hurt.
Yeah.
Think how great football would be without a wellness policy.
Mm.
The problem is when it becomes and if you depending on what historical research you do on it, Vince could have very easily gone down for racketeering and distribution, supposedly with the Zahorian deal. That's where it becomes a sticky legal thing. Are they being quote unquote forced to or not? But for pro wrestling, yeah. The veneer of a wellness policy, and I know we talked about this last week, Mr. Ryder. I mean, is there even one anymore? It's just let's be honest about it, including John Cena, who says that he's never done a cycle in his life. Come on, let's just be honest about it. And it's wrestling. It's a hybrid sport theater. I don't think we need to be worrying about testing to gain competitive advantage.
The only reason they did the wellness policy is because they took the company public, and they had to. That was the only reason. Other than that, no one gets a flying hoot.
It was all. It was like at that time where there was all those tests, Eddie Guerrero, and then the Benoit thing just drove it over.
Oh yeah, that probably did. They always blame steroids. That was a lunatic being a lunatic. A lot more people murder their wives off of steroids than they do on. So you can't blame the steroids for that. As far as the FBI thing with Vince, after he won that, which he rightfully should have won, that's when Vince went balls out. It was unstoppable at that point. But he did nothing wrong.
Muscle and fitness. He was on muscle and fitness, for God's sake.
At 60.
Hilarious. And I'm going to touch on one other thing that you said, Jack. And I know a lot of guys on steroids. I don't think John Cena's ever taken steroids.
For real?
I am dead serious. I don't think I have seen pictures of John Cena at 14 years old, and he looks exactly the same. I think he's a genetic freak. Chris Jericho agrees with me. John Cena was always the same exact size. He never deviated. Like you watch Batista, 320, 280, 320, 280, WrestleMania, 320. Cena was always the same exact size. I never saw him take a supplement. Was it Alex Wright? Who was the guy? Was taking pre-workout, and Cena ripped him a new ass and got him fired over it. Like, I don't think John Cena's ever taken it. I think he's just one of those freaks.
Then he's a 1 in a 2 million.
I honestly will say it. I really believe that he is.
What about someone like Steve
There's other
Austin?
guys that claim to be natural, Brock and Batista. And them.
What about someone like Steve Austin that never really had the big physique?
Oh, geez, Austin was jacked to the moon.
You think?
You ever stood next to Steve Austin? Big bicep Austin?
No.
Dude, Austin is gigantic.
He just didn't seem as big on TV.
Oh,
He admitted to. I think there's a difference between using and abusing, and he's admitted that he's which again there's nothing wrong with that. He did his cycles on and off. I think the problem is the whole Benoit thing where it came out. Oh my God, Benoit did 1 year of gas in 3 months, and he never cycled off, and blah. And this, of course, in the general public's mind, those that have never trained or used Deca or Winnie or any of those good things that were back in the day, they don't understand that all of a sudden you don't flip on and become a monster.
Oh, that is true. And I will say this, and I admit it freely. I have been on the same amount, 1 cc a week, since I was 23 years old, and I've never gotten off. Also never killed my wife. I don't randomly beat up independent wrestlers in the ring. I'm very calm, and I'm in great shape and very happy.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's as cut and dry, but it's interesting that they're focusing in on that about her. I think it's because her body transformation from a couple of years ago is so dramatic, where she was, the kind of pudgy classic power lifter, put the lift the truck thing, blah, 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 to this, ripped to shreds.
Like a female Scott Steiner, isn't she?
Good comparison. And speaking of which, our last combo story of the week, big Scott Steiner fan, always have been, no matter what era of his career. He made the news again for a couple of reasons, and I'll read them to you and then get your reactions, guys. Scott Steiner fired back at Jesse Ventura for a dig on Saturday night's main event. This is amazing entertainment here. He isn't happy because Ventura insulted his family's intelligence. He made an appearance, Ventura, on Saturday night's main event and made a remark about Braun Breaker's alleged lack of intelligence. And he said, but there is one thing he ain't got, Ventura said, referring to Breaker. He's a Steiner, and that means 2 and 2 equals 5. So Steiner responded that he was a graduate of the University of Michigan, and that Steiner math promo, one of the best things TNA ever did, that actually added up, apparently. I'm not good at math, so I can't comment. And he said, Jesse Ventura seems to forget that I attended a highly educated university. Next time I'll see him, I'll say there's a 141 and 2/3 chance that I will slap him like a bitch. His Navy SEAL training can't help him. So just get your quick examples on that before I go to the next Steiner tidbit.
I would be honored to have Jesse Ventura insult my intelligence because that was funny. And I would assume Steiner and Ventura are friends along the line. I can't see him actually getting offended by that.
Yeah. Although if he was to take offense to it, the position his kid is in on TV, it may not have been a good thing to do. I don't know. Most people probably watching that are not aware that he's related to Braun Breaker anyway.
Well, Breaker's Rick's son, right?
Oh, it's Rick's son.
Breaker's Rick's son.
Yeah, his uncle.
Scott's son's a freaking stud too, from a linebacker for Virginia Tech or something, right?
Yes, which leads right into the next story. He was on Busted Open Radio, and he talked about, that massively entertaining, I guess it was a shoot rivalry between him and Triple H, and the disappointment with his run. And he said, I left with a lot of hard feelings, but at some point you got to let it be. You can't be angry the whole time. You can't hold a grudge. Plus the fact some people that you have a grudge against probably don't even know anyway. He said, I don't want to screw anything up for Braun Breaker, so I just buried the hatchet. Matter of the fact, Hunter called me the other day, probably like 3 weeks ago, and offered my boy a nil deal. I guess that's a new developmental deal. Mm-hmm. I buried the hatchet. He's got one more year in college.
There you go. You put the Steiner brothers back together. Steiner cousins. Scott Steiner's run with Hunter for the title wasn't Hunter burying Steiner. Steiner had a bad leg. He couldn't move his foot.
Drop foot.
Yeah. What the hell do you think's going to get you the title again? He couldn't walk.
It was too little, too late, I think, for that to happen.
Yeah, be mad. Steiner had a hell of a career. He was a 5-time champion in WCW. He would have been the champion if his foot didn't fall off. I feel bad for him. He was always cool with me. I always liked Scott Steiner.
They had the Hell in a Cell, I think, payoff, didn't they, for that storyline, if I'm correct, Jack? Didn't they?
They had a bunch of matches. I forget. They were all good.
I remember.
Hunters, he couldn't walk.
Yeah, I remember it being highly entertaining with the pose down and the promos, and then he kind of went down in the mid card with Test, and even that little angle with Stacy Keibler. I personally enjoyed his run, but I think it would have been more impactful had he not, which nobody would do in their right mind, not sat out the what am I trying to say? The America Online contract and got paid for a couple of years. He wasn't part of the invasion. He came in after that, but I don't know if you remember when he debuted at Survivor Series and beat the hell out of Matt Hardy and the other concussion fellow whose name escapes me right now. But that I thought he was presented very well, and all in all, he, like you said, Mr. Ryder, he would have been the champ had the foot thing happened.
He says the drop foot got him. It wasn't Hunter or Stephanie burying him. He couldn't do it, and the promos were hilarious, and the arm wrestling match was great. And Hunter didn't put him over. Hunter's put everybody over. Hunter's not afraid of doing business to anyone. No,
in fact, if you go back and watch that match, which I did last year, Steiner beat the snot out of Hunter.
Right.
An entire match.
Right?
Yeah.
The only person I don't think Triple H put over was Booker T. At WrestleMania 19 that time.
I don't even remember him working Booker. Did he work Booker at 19?
Yep.
Was that the whole controversy over the promo?
The promo was in the lead up to that as well. There was a lot of racial undertones, wasn't there, in that particular storyline?
Go back to the Attitude Era. They were in blackface, painted up as the X painted themselves up as Farouk and all of that.
I think it was controversial because he referred to him as you people or something along those lines.
People like you and people like me are a lot different, I think is what something like that is what he says.
Yeah. People read too much into this stuff.
And then he went like this and looked down on him.
Here's where I met Big Papa Pump about 12 years ago at an independent show in London, Ontario, and he couldn't have been nicer.
Which one is Big Papa Pump?
I was going to say, is he a tricep on Jack? What was that?
It's still the same.
What do you want?
Creatine, bro.
The wellness policy in Canada?
Hey, we do manual labor here, bro. There's no D-ball going on here at all. But yeah, great guy. Signed a lot of genuinely happy to see his fans. So I got to put him over.
Steiner's always cool, man. Always a funny guy. First time I met him, Pittsburgh, when he first got up there. He's sitting in the locker room by himself. I sat down next to him. Actually, it was Scott, me, and the Dudleys, and that's where I met Scott Steiner. Very, very nice guy.
It's exciting
short, but bam, was he jacked.
Steiner there?
Oh, God.
Yeah. I actually, when I met him, I'm about 6'2", and I thought he was a lot taller than he was, but yeah, he wrestled I think 2 matches that night in the tournament, and that was about 2014. He hadn't lost a step by then, so
he's freaking wider than he is tall.
Yeah, kudos to him and the Steiner cousins, man. If they put those two together, and that's the one thing. Braun Breaker is amazing, great talent, but why did we give him that name? I think a lot of people know he's a Steiner
because they couldn't own the name Steiner.
Don't they already under the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, but they don't own the name Steiner. They own the name Breaker. They can put T-shirts out that say Braun Breaker all day long and keep 85% of it. They put Steiner on it. They got to give him 35, 40%.
Can't trade.
He can leave anytime he wants. That's Steiner.
Good point. Well, we've just blown through another hour of irreverent commentary here. I know that we're all building towards WrestleMania, Royal Rumble season, so I know there'll be a lot to get to in the weeks to come. How does your week ahead look? I know the fans really are interested in the infamous lifestyle of Mr. Ryder. To quote Jim Ross, referring to Ric Flair one time, the nightlife of the Nature Boy. But in this case, your lifestyle, you're a busy man, you're a very successful business entrepreneur. How are things going that way? And are you looking forward to coming to or being in Philadelphia May the 3rd for the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance One and Done?
I am very excited always to go back home to Philadelphia, and I am really looking forward to that show. I got a lot of friends. Glenn Osborne's going to be there. Larry Winter's going to be there. We have a lot of my old mentors are going to be there. And one of the highlights of my career, I don't know if I mentioned this, I got to wrestle Glenn Osborne in Madison Square Garden.
Wow, no, I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
For Monday Night Raw, they let us go out there, and Glenn put me over in front of Madison Square Garden. So my teacher put me over, and I was funny because that Glenn was just yoked. He was huge, and Glenn goes out first. He gets the first entrance, and then Terry Taylor is looking at Glenn laughing. And as soon as Glenn walks through, Terry looks at me and goes, "You're fucking dead." It just starts laughing. No, I'll be all right. I'm going to go over. No, he's not letting you go over. Hey, now. No, whatever. But that was one of my highlights of my career, was working Glenn. I'm looking forward to seeing him, and I'm looking forward to see if Super Crazy's got something to say. And I'm really looking forward to Flair stepping up and getting in that ring. Let's see if he has the ball. I know everybody else wants to work Flair, but they're standing behind me.
Yeah, Chubby Dudley Bay Ragney said that Flair, there's been a tremendous amount of interest in that. And as of right now, he's just going to be at the WrestleCon. And my goodness, what an array of talent there at the WrestleCon. We keep going over it. They keep adding names. They've added a few this week, and
Francine,
I think there will be more.
Francine's there now, right?
Yeah.
Francine.
How well is she aged?
No, she looks great.
She's aged amazing. She's a nurse, right?
I think that's Dawn Marie, isn't it?
No, Dawn Marie. I don't think Dawn Marie works at all. I thought she was married to some chief of police or something. No, I'm pretty sure she's a nurse, Francine. I think she's a nurse. And where those wrestlers love nurses.
Good diet. Good diet.
So it's gonna be a real happening. We're gonna have a lot of information in the weeks to come. But before we go, Morris, I thought I'd give you the last word. We've got a very big interview coming up on this channel, and that would be in addition to others, that would be one Sean Mooney.
Yes, that's this weekend, isn't it?
Next week.
It's next week. It's one I can't do. Isn't that an early morning kind of thing for me over here?
I believe it's around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll just pull up I should have had that ready. I'm slipping.
Yeah, but 8 a.m. for me. Yeah, that'll be out of bounds for me getting the kids to school. But
well, that is going to be. It's scheduled for the February the 6th at 1 p.m. live. In 8 days, that will be something I will be taking the role for facilitating. And my goodness, there's a lot to talk about with Mr. Moon.
Yeah. And we also have.
That'll be a good interview.
We've got a show and tell coming up as well on the show on St. Patrick's Day, and we're all going to be drinking.
Virtual green beer. You're going to have to be around for that one, Ryder. It's going to be
absolutely be around for that.
It could be an interesting mix, and we'll talk about that off air. But fans, thank you again for tuning into the flagship show, the weekly news show on Cheap Eat, right here. You're not going to miss or want to miss any future episodes, because Mr. Ryder brings his insights to the business that you can't get anywhere else. And I want you to please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification button, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel if at all possible. It would really help me out. And don't forget, you can check out my back catalogue of videos, recording podcasts